Just over 7 years ago, we had this dream called Redemption Church. We had a dream to see real people serving a real God. We had this dream that we would help as many people as possible experience life change through Jesus. We dreamed to see marriages restored, families reconciled, addictions broken, depression lifted, and souls saved. In the past 7 years, God has done just that. I remember when Ashley and I moved to Beaumont, we had pretty much nothing. We had no house, no job, we had no legit church, we had no money, we had no building, we had no people. Some days we even wondered if we had a clue. But all we had was a dream and a prayer, and we began to see God answer that prayer. What started off as a small group meeting in our Old Town apartment eventually became a launch team that would dream and serve and pray and plan, but most importantly, we committed together. We knew that if we would commit together and that we would go all in, we would see God do something that only He could get the credit for. In those early days, we had a choice. What were we gonna do? Were we going to follow Jesus, or were we gonna let this opportunity pass us by? Well, the story of redemption since day one is we always step out in faith and make a decision to follow Jesus. On February of 2016, Redemption Church opened its doors for the very first time. We launched a life-giving, spirit-filled church in the heart of downtown Beaumont. From that day forward, we have done whatever we could do to help as many people as possible experience life change through Jesus. And since then, God has done some amazing things. A couple of years after we launched, we found ourselves in a very similar situation. We were at a crossroads yet again. The old bar that we launched our church in, it was closing, and we needed a new place to be able to meet, or our church would become homeless. That's when we found this building here at 601 Park Street. The problem is it hadn't been occupied in almost 20 years. Most people driving downtown, if you saw this building, it would be an eyesore. The only thing it was good for was to be condemned. It was filled with heroin needles, prison IDs, 40-ounce bottles, tanning beds. We even found an old car. But when we saw it, and we saw redemption. So we got to work, and with the help of our church and volunteers, we went all in. And in less than 6 months, we raised the money and we renovated this building, turning an old warehouse into our new home. After moving to Park Street, our church, we began to experience rapid growth. Just in the last year, we've doubled in size to where now we have a weekly attendance of almost 500 people. Nearly 100 of those are in Redemption Kids. In 2022, we baptized 106 new believers, added 144 people to the church through Next Steps, gave out over 500 Thanksgiving meals to families in need. Week after week, more people are walking through these doors, experiencing life change through Jesus. Man, we have seen souls healed. We have seen wounds healed, relationships restored, baptisms, salvations, child dedications, legit miracles. And needless to say, in those last 7 years, it's been a testimony of what can happen when a church goes all in, when a church commits to a vision and decides to step out in faith and follow Jesus. Which leads us to today. If you haven't noticed, we are literally out of room. Everywhere, our church is at max capacity. Our staff has given up their offices to be able to make additional children's classrooms. We've made the move from 2 services to 3 services, but there's still not enough space to accommodate the growth that God is bringing to our church. Did you know that just in the last few months, we have actually seen people park their car, check their kids in, only to turn around and leave because there wasn't a seat for them in the sanctuary. Guys, that is unacceptable. But what message does that send to a first-time guest when they check their kids in and there's no space for them? When the check-in runs the length of the lobby, we're stacking kids on top of each other in Redemption Kids. What does it say when there isn't a seat for them in the sanctuary? Well, it says you're not welcome here. It says we didn't plan for you or make room for you. And that just cannot happen, because we want to reach as many people for Jesus as possible. These problems, what they're doing is they're preventing us from fulfilling the call and the dream that God has given to us as a church. So once again, we find ourselves at one of those crossroads. What are we gonna do? Are we gonna play it safe? Or are we gonna step out in faith and follow Jesus? Well, by now, you know the story of redemption is that we always choose to follow Jesus. That's why we're starting a 2-year generosity initiative that's called Multiply. Multiply is designed to raise the generosity level of everyone who calls redemption home, so that way we can continue to help more people experience life change through Jesus. Multiply has 2 goals. The first goal is 100% engagement. We are asking everyone who calls redemption home to go all in. Over the next 2 years, we're asking that you would be both intentional and sacrificial when it comes to your generosity so we can keep seeing more lives changed. I mean, what would it look like for a church to be known for their audacious, radical generosity? I mean, imagine the ministries that we could provide, the missionaries that we could support, the legacy that we would leave when we all learn to give both generously and sacrificially. And that's what Multiply is all about. It's about making a difference by following Jesus and putting him first in our finances. In 2 Corinthians, the Apostle Paul, he tells his church this: "He who supplies the seed to the sower and bread for food will supply and multiply your seed for sowing and increase the harvest of your righteousness." Who supplies the seed? God does. But when we put God first and we trust him by stewarding the resources he has blessed us with, he will multiply the impact that we are going to have from Beaumont and beyond. That is the first goal. The second goal is 3 million in generosity. See, I believe that if we accomplish the first goal, then we will be successful in the second. Over the next 2 years, here's what we're going to do. We are going to multiply our ministry efforts in 3 main areas. The first is to multiply our investment in our current ministries. Man, we want to keep investing in the next generation. Right now, 27% of America's population is under 20 years old. That means the next generation is the now generation. Now is the time to invest in our future. Beyond that, what we want to do is continue to grow our strategic partnerships and outreach and other opportunities so that way we can continue to make a difference in our city. And lastly, we're going to continue to preach through books of the Bible as we baptize new believers, just like we always do each year, but we're going to do so with greater levels of intentionality and engagement. When it comes to investing in our church, it's going to be $1.44 million over 2 years. The second area is our community. Sunday mornings are the greatest tool for evangelism in America. Healthy churches bring about healthy communities. But here at Redemption, we are limited in our capacity to continue to reach people, which is why we purchased this entire city block, and we'll begin renovations on expanding our church from what you see now to well over 21,000 square feet in facilities. This expansion is going to have a sanctuary of 600 people per service, and everything that you currently see on a Sunday, what we're occupying now will be handed over to our children and youth ministries for Sunday mornings and Wednesday nights. Then we're gonna have 9 classrooms for kids ministry, a sensory room for special needs children, and a sanctuary for both youth and elementary with a capacity to hold 100 students per service. Research has shown that when a church plant like ours becomes an established church with its own building, it will double in size in the first 6 months. So that means possibly by the end of Multiply, we have the potential to be running over 1,200 people across 2 services on a Sunday. Just imagine the stories of life change that are waiting to be told. In addition to that, we have been given for free a new building in Port Neches, along with the plans of launching a second campus within the next 2 years. So get ready for Redemption Mid-County coming soon. The total cost for this commitment to our community with the new building and the second campus and special needs ministry is going to be $1.4 million. And lastly, we want to continue to invest in missions by making a pledge to increase our church's generosity to both local and global initiatives to $160,000, bringing the grand total to Multiply to $3 million in generosity over the next 2 years. In order to accomplish this goal, we've adopted a new strategic approach called a One Fund. What is a One Fund? Well, it's one big kingdom fund where every dollar given over the next 2 years will contribute to it. In the past, people would often select which project they're most passionate about and what they wanted to give in and give towards. Some people chose to give to the building, some people chose to give to missions, some people chose to give to Next Gen, but we don't want to pick and choose. No, we want to go all in. So we're going to be united together as a church, and we're going to accomplish this God-given goal together. Over the past 2 years, the people of Redemption, you've given about $1.4 million. And so what we're asking for is that everyone who calls Redemption home, 100% engagement, would go all in on this journey by both giving meaningful, cheerfully, and sacrificially. If we do this together, I believe that we can add an additional $1.6 million in generosity over the next 2 years. You wonder, is that possible? Well, so far, God has not let us down. And I believe that where we are headed is better than where we have been, because when you follow Jesus, the best is yet to come. I believe that with your prayers, with your faithfulness, with your commitment, if you go all in, it's not only possible, but it's providential. This is going to be one of those life-changing moments, not just for others, but for us. I mean, it almost feels with the same level of excitement and anxiety that Ashley and I felt when we first planted the church 7 years ago. Man, we are excited about the future. We are anticipating miracles. We are believing for stories of life change through Jesus like never before. And I believe that what God is about to do is going to be something that we're all going to be telling our kids and grandkids about in the next 20 years. It's a legacy-leaving moment. But it's up to us together, all of us, to fully commit and to boldly follow Jesus in this new season. Ashley and I, we're all in, and we want to invite you to join us. I mean, will you pray like never before? Will you participate like never before? Will you sacrificially give at a level like never before? Come on, Redemption. It's time for us to multiply.